I don't know why I have been asked lately a very obvious question. At least the answer to me is very obvious. I don't know why it has come up. When I do the monologues, I can't necessarily read the comments because I'm so focused on everything else that I'm doing. But I do not know why so many people are asking me if it's right to vote. I don't know who has made an assertion that you can't vote or you shouldn't vote as a Christian, but voting is a duty that has been entrusted to you in this country. You might argue that, well, my votes don't count for lots of different reasons. You can argue corruption, you can argue all kinds of things, but the reality of it is God does not command us to get involved in standing for righteousness based on a contingency. He doesn't say stand up for righteousness only if you think your cause will win. If he told us to think that way, we probably would not even be alive. This world would be destroyed by now. There'd be nothing that's there. I do not stand up for the things that I stand up for, and I do not encourage people to stand up for the things that they stand for because there is a mechanism that drives a contingency for a result. Understand that. The contingency that we have is, are we pleasing God or are we not pleasing God? Are we obeying God or are we disobeying God? That's the question. And God tells us that we must stand for righteousness. One of the legal ways that we've been given to stand for righteousness is to use the mechanism of voting. If we choose not to do that, we are simply walking away from a God-given responsibility, and that God-given responsibility is to stand for righteousness, and if we don't stand for righteousness, then we will be held accountable before God. I listen to what God asks me to do, and I do the things that I do right now because God has told me to do them, not because I think I can win. There have been many fights on many fronts that I have fought and have lost in the initial battle. But the one thing that I can continue to say is I have no blood on my hands because I have done absolutely everything necessary to contend for the lives of babies, of children, of innocent people. Think about it like this, folks. If Christians actually said, I'm not going to vote, Roe v. Wade would not have been overturned. It was because of the voting power of believers that allowed righteous Supreme Court justices to be appointed, that actually allowed the induction of the Mississippi case to come into play, that brought in the kind of leaders that appointed attorney generals that filed amicus briefs in support of these particular matters. And now Roe v. Wade and Casey is no longer the law of the land. It never was a super precedent. Whether or not anybody wants to argue that, you can sit down and you can have a massive conversation about stare decisis and how we actually make those determinations in the legal world. But the reality of it is, no matter how you cut it, no matter how you look at it, no matter how you want to break it apart, if we, the righteous, were not involved in the voting process, there'd be at least right now, as we speak, another 700 to 800 babies a day being killed. Let me ask you this one question. Is it worth voting to save 700 or 800 babies a day? If your answer is no, then we've got a problem on our hands. We've got a big problem on our hands.